This is the University of Missouri Board of Curators web stream.
And open it up for the general business, and I'm going to defer my board chair report until our September meeting. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Gary.
Okay. We have the process that I think is in place for this morning is to concentrate on our budget review, and my comments in general will be encapsulated as we talk about the budget. So with that, we can, I think, move into the consent agenda.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote.
Curator Cairns? Curator Carnahan?
Yes.
Curator Erdman?
Yes.
Curator Frazier?
Yes.
Curator Haggard?
Yes.
Curator Russell?
Yes.
Curator Walker?
Yes.
Curator Walsworth? Curator Wassinger?
Yes, but Steve, I had one question for your resolution on the title of General Counsel.
Yes?
It says that your responsibilities changed from General Counsel, but it doesn't have a do.
I'm back. Have a what?
But to change the title.
This is number 4.
I see it. Okay, from General Counsel. You want to be both the Secretary and General Counsel. Okay. I got you now. Approved. Yay.
Okay. Curator Wassinger, we're voting on the consent agenda.
Yes.
Curator Walsworth. Yes. Motion passes 8-0.
Okay. With that, I'll turn it over to Curator Doug Russell for the Finance and Audit Committee.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The Finance and Audit Committee met yesterday, and we discussed 3 of our 4 action items, and then President Forsey will be covering the 4th here in just a few minutes. But what's the pleasure? Do we want to take these all up at once, or vote separately?
I think we take Doug. I think we can take the hedge fund. I think we just take them. Pull them together.
Okay.
If Doug, if you're comfortable, as one who was unable to participate in the Finance Audit Committee meeting, I would appreciate just getting a little bit of the flavor of it yesterday, because I'm really deferring to the committee on this matter.
Okay. Well, the first action item was the selection of a hedge funds investment manager, and we had 4 excellent managers that came and presented. Actually, one needed to present via telephone because he couldn't get out of New York because of the weather. And the board or the committee recommends Corbin and Intrust are the 2 managers that the committee unanimously recommends to the board for approval. There is approximately $100 million. Is that right, Nikki? That will be split between these 2.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit closer to 110, but I think if we just say 2.5% of the portfolio.
Okay. 2.5% of the portfolio will be split between these 2 for both the Missouri, the endowment fund and the retirement fund. On behalf of the committee, I'll move approval, and if there's a second, then we can open it up for discussion.
I second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion or questions? If not, I call for the vote.
Curator Cairns? Curator Carnahan?
Yes.
Curator Erdman? Curator Erdman?
Yes.
Curator Frazier?
Yes.
Curator Haggard?
Yes.
Curator Russell,
Yes.
Curator Walker,
Yes.
Curator Walsworth,
Yes.
Curator Wassinger.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
The next action item that's being recommended by...
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think for Warren's behalf, if you don't mind, I'd like to say that the two firms that we just voted on and are investing in are firms that are very, very transparent in the hedge fund industry, and I think that was one of the criteria that kind of swayed me to both of these firms. I just thought that's for Warren's information.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. I defer to the unanimous recommendation of the committee on this, as I am unaware of any of these except for Blackstone.
Yeah. Well, that's just for information, Doug. I'm sorry
Okay.
to interrupt it.
Appreciate you adding that. Okay, well, the second action item is the termination of, do they go by the RREEF? Is that how they're known, Nikki?
Reef America.
Reef America? Okay.
Yeah.
Reef America, we are recommending that we terminate the arrangement with them, and the board or the committee unanimously recommends this to the board, and I so move.
Second.
If we're in discussion,
Yes.
my understanding was that there's been a material change with the management, and this outfit's been bought by Deutsche Bank. Is that that's fundamentally why we're terminating and moving in a different direction?
Yes, the acquisition by Deutsche Bank happened 5 years ago, and actually 6 years ago this summer. And they had an agreement, a 5-year retention plan with the management when they acquired Reef, and that expired last summer. And we saw the senior management team then leave Reef America, and so that's why we are recommending that we discontinue this. It will take us, we think, a year, a little bit more to unwind because there are others that want to withdraw their funds. And the good news is that we don't go to the end of the line. We just get added to the pool that they distribute to when they liquidate a portion of the portfolio on a quarterly basis.
So it's basically a queue, but it's a proportional liquidation.
Exactly.
That occurs over time, and so we're kind of getting that ball rolling here because it'll take some time to do that.
Right. We haven't seen any degradation in the management of the funds at this point, but since we don't know the senior management team, we just think it's prudent to move in this direction.
Yeah.
Historically, there's been a very, very good return for the university with this investment.
I guess that was kind of my curiosity. This recommendation is driven largely by infamiliarity with the new management team, not by performance.
Absolutely. I think the internal rate of return is running slightly more than 11% at this point.
And so then after we go through that process, then we will reinvest?
Yes, we'll be looking over the next several months for new opportunities with a real estate investment manager that we will bring to the committee and the board.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Mary, and I just joined.
Hi, Marion.
Hi.
Apparently, you have reason to believe that the new team might not be as successful as the prior team.
At this point, we just don't know, I think.
So it really boils down to just infamiliarity.
Right, and the feeling is that if we don't get into line at this point, and it's possible that as the part of the process of evaluating new managers, that we would evaluate Reef and come back to you and recommend that we continue, re-up with them. But I think at this point, if we don't get your permission to get into the queue, so to speak, or into the pool that gets the distribution, then
The line.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like the queue is growing.
Yes.
Yeah, Warren, I think the other factor is the incentives of the fund were aligned more with the parent, and that caused us concern that there could be a lack of alignment, and most of the fund managers had a buyout provision and have left, so it was not just new management of Deutsche Bank, new management within the fund and alignment of incentives that may not produce the kind of results that we've had. So.
Okay, yeah, okay. Sounds like the line's forming.
Yes.
All right, is there any more discussion? If not, I call for the vote.
Curator Cairns?
Yes?
Curator Carnahan?
Yes.
Curator Erdman?
Yes?
Curator Frazier?
Yes.
Curator Haggard?
Yes.
Curator Russell?
Yes.
Curator Walker?
Yes.
Curator Walsworth? Yes. Curator Watzinger?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
The third action item is determination of TCW as an investment manager. And again, there was a change in management, as well as their performance has fallen off, or has at least lagged. According to the information we received in your packet, you'll note that they've ranked below the 70th percentile of small and mid-cap investment managers during several of the years, and so the recommendation was unanimously approved by the committee, and I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, call for the vote.
Curator Cairns?
Yes.
Curator Carnahan?
Yes.
Curator Erdman?
Yes.
Curator Frazier?
Yes.
Curator Haggard?
Yes.
Curator Russell?
Yes.
Curator Walker?
Yes.
Curator Walsworth? Yes. Curator Watzinger?
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0.
The last action item of the committee was not dealt with yesterday. It's the fiscal year 2010 appropriation request for operations, and President Forsey is going to present and then open it up for questions. So, Gary, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Committee Chairman Russell. Let me set the stage by saying a couple things. I'll cover the operating request, and I'll turn it over to Nikki as we get into the Facilities Management and Service Committee for the capital piece of that. But I wanted to set the tone. As you know, today we are asking that the Finance and Audit Committee for approval of the university's fiscal year 2010 appropriation request. As you recall, we presented this in draft form at the June board meeting, and the details of the appropriations request were included in your board materials. Today we'll highlight some of the changes and also give you a little bit of commentary about that. I would suggest to you that this particular planning year will be a very critical planning year, both internally within the university as well as we take this budget forward to the General Assembly and all of our constituents. First, we have the unknown effect of the continued economic situation that impacts our state as well as nationally. Second, there will be an effect, this being an election year, both nationally and within the state. Third, there are critical policies that were considered last year in the General Assembly that we have to be vigilant about, as they may impact the university's operations, and those would include tax policies that the state may consider, as well as tuition and scholarship policies. Fourth, our ability to continue to protect the quality of the programs in the university have certainly been impacted by the funding mechanisms within the state. Our ability to continue to look at efficiencies, at critical measures that would support the need for additional funds will be something that the university, the chancellors, and the system office will continue to pay a high degree of attention to, and will report back to the board as we continue to make progress in that regard. And the fifth point that will come up in the capital program area is that we are reaching critical status related to maintenance and repair that hits both the operating line item as well as the need for critical facilities to be improved upon, which has a capital component as well as a long-term planning component. So we need to be, again, vigilant about all those particular issues. We provided to you last night, I hope you received it, a calendar of events, I'll call it near-term planning chronology. I thought this was important so that you could see that we have spent some time thinking about all of these different components that will unfold over the next several months. I won't go through this line item by line item, but suffice to say today is an important milestone. We would intend to put out a release this afternoon, assuming board approval, that would highlight the elements of both our capital plan as well as the operating plan. We have started to meet with key leadership of the General Assembly to both talk about process for the budget and to be sure that they have as much advanced awareness and knowledge of our priorities. In August, we will continue to work the plan of the university, the strategic plan that has been underway, as well as ensuring that we have the right perspective at the campus level, as well as the system level for initiatives that can allow us to provide leverage and collaboration. As you also are aware, we will initiate in August a market research project that will help us understand how we promote the value of the University of Missouri as well as higher education in general. Also in August, we are going to take on a capital planning exercise to be sure that we have a complete understanding about the flexibility we have in order to address our capital planning needs, and I listed there a range of options that we want to consider. September will be important not only with our board meeting to review the status of our operating and strategic plans and measures that would go along with that, but also meetings with the coordinating board and COFI to find areas of cooperation as we jointly work on the state's higher education priorities. September to December, as we contemplate the election cycle as well as getting our key constituents up to speed on our budget request in advance of the General Assembly in January will be an important set of activities, and you can see there some of the constituent groups that we want to be sure are very aware and knowledgeable about the budget, about the priorities to obviously enlist their support. We have a Missouri 100 meeting in October that will include many elected officials, again, an opportunity to share with them our message and priorities. And importantly then, after the elections in November, to use that time between the election and the start of the General Assembly processes in January to enlist the support of the leadership of the key committees as well as the new governor to be sure that they are very involved and aware of our plan, and obviously the opportunity to co-op with them on our plan as we look toward January to work with the General Assembly. So we thought this would be helpful for you to see kind of chronology. As one of you suggested, we will report to you along the way around each of these milestones to be sure that that you have a perspective that will be gathered as we work our way through that. I now ask you to turn to, in your tab, the Finance and Audit, actually page 4, and I'll kind of walk through what has changed since June Curators meeting. Our new investment plan for operations has changed from $93.89 million total with $65.76 coming from state appropriations to a total now of $103.15 with $75 million coming from state appropriations. And you can see the narratives that are outlined on the Finance and Audit Committee, page 4A, and if you would prefer to look at the summary sheet on page 4G, you can certainly do that. I would point out that I think there's 3 general categories of the, quote, incremental requests that you'll see more and hear more about over time. The core mission of the university is captured by the annual merit increase in compensation, which is a 4% level. The technology infrastructure and ongoing costs really represents the inflationary aspects of ongoing utility costs and technology improvements. Those would be considered core mission, and those 2 items would be covered and incorporated into the 4.2% third-year request that Governor Blunt committed to, and we're now in the 3rd year of that cycle. Items 3, 4, and 5, the competitive ranked faculty compensation, the St. Louis equity adjustment, support for fiscal year 2001 through 2008 enrollment, and protecting the university's infrastructure. Those can be in the category of our continuing operations as well as catching up for the underfunding that has occurred during that period of time. And I'll talk about some of those specifically in just a minute. And the final category, items 7 and 8, would clearly be investing in the future, investing in our state, both on next generation of healthcare professionals as well as ensuring that we have some modicum of economic development funding available to accelerate our activities to grow jobs and grow resources for the state. Back to the changes since the last time you saw this information. We made a slight refinement of $0.04 million to the St. Louis equity adjustment. There was an addition of $6.8 million for enrollment growth, and again, this looks back at the period of time where we've had almost 20% enrollment growth since fiscal year 2001, or almost 8,000 students. And by the way, this doesn't capture the expected growth that we would have starting this fall. So this is just taking a snapshot up to this period of time. And it uses a formula approach that has been adopted by COFI as well as the coordinating board that would be looking at this prospectively. This tries to look back and to see how we've been underfunded for the state's portion of enrollment growth support during this period of time. So that's where the $6.8 million comes from. This would be spread over 2 years, with the first year being at the $6.8 million level. There is a $1 million adjustment in the Preparing Next Generation of Health Professionals, which is a result of simply applying last year's rate that we would have expected and applying an inflationary adjustment to that. And the final addition is the $1.5 million item for economic development. The economic development is an item that we have attempted to fund within the university's wherewithal to support at both the system level, meaning in support of all 4 campuses, as well as freeing up some funds to support activities on the campus. And this relates to kind of the wide range of activities, whether that be invention disclosures by researchers, whether it's research expenditures, whether it's additional funding to be used for grants to accelerate proof of technology, a wide range of activities to support what has been a nascent effort, and certainly with Chairperson Walker's initiative this year to focus on this. Our effort this year has been to find internally resources to put against this, but now to ask the General Assembly to also put dollars forward, and something that we think is very important for the future of the state and the ability for our researchers to have the opportunity to unlock their intellectual property and to set that on the path toward commercialization. The remaining items in the request included our top priorities, which are unchanged from June, and that included the $14.1 million for the annual merit increase to be part of our competitive compensation strategy that would allow a 4% merit pool, $4.83 million increase for costs associated with infrastructure and ongoing costs, including inflationary adjustments for utilities and technology, and the $7.2 million for competitive ranked faculty compensation. You may recall that the Curators set in motion last year a 3-year approach for getting our salaries to a median of the market competitive framework, which has been established as the AAU group. You'll also recall that our efforts to secure funding from the state this year were not successful, but we were able to go into university resources and reallocate our support, which originally had been set at $3.55, and we funded the additional state portion of that this year. We're going back to the state, however, and ask that they make up the portion that they did not fund last year, and in addition fund the second year of the Curators' commitment to help close this faculty salary issue. So again, consistent with the discussion that we've had and consistent with the investment required to ensure that we start to make movement in this regard. items that we have removed from the budget since you saw this in June included the Grow Missouri initiative. This had significant discussion and review by my office, and I communicated that to you in a separate piece of correspondence. And this also does not include taking forward a cooperative biomedical engineering program, which was just not ready to be brought forward at this point in time. In addition to that, also in the binder, and this is picked up principally in pages 4E and 4F, those are the ongoing curator programs, and we are simply asking for the 4.2% inflationary increase associated with those programs. So that represents the package that we will be taking forward to the General Assembly. Again, we have worked this across the campuses and worked it certainly within our entire organization to be sure that we support these programs and are willing to take these programs forward and through the process of the General Assembly starting in January, but with, I indicated in the schedule, a lot of work to be done to gather that support along the way. Mr. Chairman Russell, I will pause there and see if there are any questions or comments from curators.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, just a couple. This is Warren. The $9.3 million that would be in other curator programs, uncompensated care to the hospital, and one-time requests for Morenet and Mobius, that 9.3 is not included in the $75 million in increments for operation. Is that correct?
That's correct, Warren.
Okay, so that 9.3 then is simply the 4.2 inflation that we would expect for those programs over the core budget from last year.
Plus some additional one-time requests or recurring requests from those operations. So, for example, Mobius and Morenet and the State Historical Society. If you're looking at that page, which is 4H, you'll notice that in addition, there's the 4.2% increase, which is the $900,000, and then below that there's $2.7 million for Morenet increased capacity, $500,000 for Mobius, and $500,000 for the State Historical Society.
Those are all one time.
Those are new recurring requests for those three operations.
Oh.
And then down below that are new one-time requests for Morenet and Mobius.
Okay, so it's not just the 4.2 inflation. It's also some new requests beyond what would be 4.2 inflation over the core budget.
Yeah, and my comments were that there had been really no change in this since the view in June. So my comment was the 4.2% and no other change in that.
Okay.
I probably misspoke there a bit.
So if you take the $75 million in increment over the core budget, the 2009 core, which is $438 million, is that right?
Yeah.
That's a net number, yes. It's higher than it's $451 million gross.
Oh, that's net of the withholding.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the gross number?
451.
I was just kind of looking at what the percent of growth is, and based on the net number, it's about 17%.
That's right.
And if you include the other programs and the uncompensated care and the one-time, it's close to 19%.
Yeah, that's correct. But on the other curator programs, a portion of those we are directed by statute to request. So the ones down, Alzheimer's Research, Spinal Cord Injury Seminary Fund, are all under statute that we request. And then the other curator programs, not including University of Missouri Healthcare, are all programs for which the university, in a sense, acts as a pass-through, and each of these organizations has its own board that they work with, that they then make recommendations to us, and then you approve it before it goes forward, but it's not technically part of our operating budget.
Yeah, so I respect that and understand that. If you just limit yourself to our operating budget, the 75 million increment, and you apply it to the gross core budget to make the percentage a little smaller, it comes to about 16.6%.
Well,
it's really about 11%, about 11% if you back out the 4.6% which is consumed.
Okay, sure. Well, this is our ask, right?
Well, it's our ask, but I think more importantly, it's really our requirement, and that's why I said up front, this is an accumulation of activities that left unaddressed. Then I put the caveat on the quality of our programs, our ability for initiatives like this occurred at the Columbia campus of Compete, Missouri, and on all the other campuses to continue to sustain at that level, absent this level of funding. We have to be vigilant about being sure we set requirements in place, and that's what this attempts to do.
My only comment, I'll let others talk, but I think we all know in the legislative process that being nimble and flexible is something that you have to do, and I know everyone knows that, and that it may be that some of these operating increase requests might be available to us on the capital and maintenance side more easily than on the operating side, but that's just a kind of a general observation.
Yeah, and I've tried in the last week, I've started meeting with the current or assumed leadership on both the House side as well as the Senate side to start to have those discussions and to be sure that we have a very current or contemporary perspective on state revenues. As you know, the state ended up with a record surplus, and I want to be sure that the state elected officials know that our needs for higher education need to be at the front of the line, and we're going to be very directive about that as we go through this fall.
Yeah.
What are revenue projections for 010, Gary? Were they sharing that with you?
No, there's been, I think, no other update, Doug, since end of May, when there was still some concern of 010 having a shortfall, in the range of 100 to 200 off what had been their planned budget at that point in time. But yet, as I've talked to some of these individuals that you're aware of, there seemed to be a more positive outlook. But nationally, that's a little bit hard to pin down right now. So we don't know anything more. We'll probably find out in September as we start to work with them on, as well as the state coordinating board and the Board of Higher Education on the submissions.
I think a lot of good work's gone in putting this together. I guess I just encourage us to stay focused on our top priorities, and I know maybe the response is all of these are our top priorities, but when push comes to shove, if we need to focus, we need to make sure we stay consistent with, or at least this is my opinion, that our top priorities would be the prepare to care, and then the competitive ranked faculty compensation adjustment, and hopefully we'll be able to get all of that funded, but we need to make sure we stay consistent with our message on what our priorities are.
Yeah, we'll do that, and I think one of the opportunities we have is to package some of these up. So, for example, preparing to care, we're meeting around the state now with those entities that have requirements for hiring, the students that would be brought forward in these programs, and I mentioned one of those examples to you yesterday. And I think also we have an opportunity to package preparing to care with the broader statewide health care initiatives and health service initiatives that will likely be addressed by the new governor and by the new General Assembly. So that will be an opportunity we have to create some packaging where there's clear sponsorship and advocacy, and I think those are some opportunities we have to deal with this fall. On each of these line items, by the way, whether it's UMSL equity or ranked faculty salary adjustments, I think finding an advocate, a sponsor, someone that will want to ultimately have this as part of their credit and legacy as they go forward will be something that we'll be finding out with our General Assembly.
I would echo Doug's comment that about the priorities. I agree with Doug that there's been some really good work done on this, and I think the rationale for each of these is very well articulated, and I support this legislative ask. I would just reemphasize again that when you get in the legislative process, as everyone knows, that sometimes it's easier to get your money in one place as compared to another, and it's all good money. And if it turns out that there's a better appetite at the General Assembly for one-time maintenance and repair, that we remain flexible and be willing to take it where we can get it.
Yeah, and Warren, I think it's so, and I concur with what you and Doug said, Gary. This is really good. But I think that you're going to have to keep coaching the board on our priorities so that the board is in lockstep with the message that you're promoting and giving to the General Assembly and Jeff City.
Well, I appreciate that, and again, this is not a all or nothing proposition. We understand that. However, I think I want to spend enough time with the new governor and with the General Assembly that they understand more than just a line item of expense the needs of the university, and I think that's going to be hard work, but that's work that I'm asking the chancellors to participate in. We'll be asking various of our constituent groups to participate in, because reducing it to a line item I don't think does justice to the needs of the university. So we need to ratchet up our plan in order to be able to describe that, and that's work we need to do. But I think we also need to get a broader advocacy established within the General Assembly for our needs as universities. And that's hard work. That may not happen in 2010, but it's work that we need to undertake and be, again, very direct about. But point well taken, and we'll be sure that our priorities are reflective of this discussion.
And maybe saying it in a little bit different way, we are advocates in all of our districts. We run into people all the time that we do all need to be on that same page so that we give that continual, solid, good message. If you can keep us informed in that way too, I think that'll just make it better for all of us to be good at what we're doing out there in our areas.
Good point. Thank you, Judy.
Your chronology of activities is very encouraging, and I think is going to pay a lot of dividends.
Yeah, feel free to add or critique that. So that's considered work in progress. If you all have some ideas about that, we'll add some lines to the page.
Very well done.
Gary has a suggestion on this request for additional appropriation for because of the enrollment growth. You might want to think about exactly what that means, as opposed to just saying we want to increase just because our students have increased. What are we going to do with that additional revenue, I guess is what I'm really trying to say.
Yeah, we will work on that. Part of what we have done is play forward a bit the funding formula that has been agreed upon by COFI as well as the higher education group that was a subset of coordinating board. So we did a calculation based on this 20% growth that we've had up to this date, and this is what that funding formula would have required the state to have provided during that 2001-2008 period had that been in place. And actually, as we did that calculation, it didn't even pick up the expected enrollment increases for the 2009 year. So, if anything, we've understated it, but I think we probably have a packaging opportunity to do with this and be clear of what those funds would be used for. Obviously, classroom size,
Right.
ability for.
I assume those were some of the types of initiatives, but I think it's important to point those out as opposed to say we get to this number because there's a formula out there that that I'm not sure the legislature's even bought into.
Fair point. Okay.
If we're still in the committee meeting, do we have any other questions? If not, Madam Chair, I guess I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. Having heard that report on our appropriations request for fiscal year 2010, if there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just one question on this final item, state seminary, $3.2 million in interest income. What is the state seminary? I didn't even know we had one.
I knew this gets asked every year. I was just looking for my notes on that in here. The state seminary program is an endowment, actually some endowed funds that were for the use of basically the Columbia campus and the Rolla campus. And the state holds those funds, but we have to direct them to invest those funds, and then we have to request the appropriations of the investment income that comes off of those funds. And so that's what we do every year. We look at what the balance is in that account at the state. Whatever the balance is, we direct them to invest that balance, and then we ask them for what we project the investment income to be that comes off of that for distribution to those two campuses.
And what are they used for on those two campuses?
I don't believe that they're restricted for use, but I'm just getting some information here, so let me check.
It has to do with the restriction placed on the gift.
I'm sorry. Yes. The School of Mines and Metallurgy, which is the Rolla campus, is for the entire Rolla campus. It's for the support of the College of Agriculture as well on the Columbia campus. You think I'd remember it after being asked it every year for 10 years? Yeah, it's for the land grant mission.
Oh. So basically it's asking for the interest earnings that we are entitled to anyway.
That's right. So the state treasurer is the custodian of the fund, and they can't distribute any of the funds except on a warrant drawdown by the state commissioner of administration, and it has to be based on a requisition made by the Board of Curators.
Ah, well that explains it. Why is it called seminary?
It's because I think because it is. Because I think because originally maybe when the institution was set up, it was called the Seminary of Learning.
Ah.
It's whatever is in the state statute.
Okay. Never mind. Thanks for that.
Hey, Warren, how do we go any further?
Okay.
Chairman Russell?
Yes.
I think we need a committee vote before we proceed to the full board vote.
Okay. We have a motion then from the committee to recommend the approval of the budget request for 2010.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded.
Yes.
Ready for a roll call?
Yes.
Roll call of the Finance Committee only. Curator Karen.
Yes.
Curator Frazier.
Yes.
Curator Russell.
Yes.
Curator Walsworth. Curator Walsworth. Motion passes 3-0.
think he was on a cell, Steve. He may have fell off.
Yeah, he was driving to Kansas City, I believe.
Motion passes the committee 3-0.
Now we need a motion from the board.
If you want to now move to the full board vote, we need a motion in a second.
I'll move that we adopt that recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Is there a second?
Second. Is there any further discussion? If not, I call for the vote.
Curator Karen.
Yes.
Curator Carnahan.
Yes.
Curator Erdman.
Yes.
Curator Frazier.
Yes.
Curator Haggard.
Yes.
Curator Russell.
Yes.
Curator Walker.
Yes.
Curator Walsworth. Curator Wassinger.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay. Well, let's see. That takes us to the Physical Facilities Committee, of which Curator Walsworth is the chair. So I see that the first item is the information item concerning the campus capital plan. So, Nikki, I would turn that over to you in Don's absence.
Oh, okay. Let me start by just saying that the first item is an information item, and it's the campus capital plans, and we provided this to you at the June board meeting. There are two documents in here. One describes the capital projects, sort of a summary form, and provides what the funding is for those projects and the projected year. And then the other is a spreadsheet that shows the planning horizon and potential funding sources. And this is for projects on each of the campuses through 2015. The projects are prioritized based on the number of criteria which are provided in your board materials. The key one being the campus strategic plan, and then looking at facility renewal and the extent to which buildings can be need to be updated and adapted and renewed, and then what new buildings we need in order to meet programmatic needs. And then also considered in the criteria are the availability for funding and the extent to which the campus has funding for ongoing operational support. As the President pointed out earlier, every time you have a capital project, you not only have the sort of one-time capital funds that are required to construct the project, but then there's an associated impact on the operating budget. So we provide this, it helps the campuses to focus on what their top priorities are, and we have them prioritize those by campus, and so that they can take advantage of funding opportunities as they come along. It's this group of projects that will, the President again mentioned earlier, that we'll be looking at capital planning later on in August and September of this year, and we'll be using this set of projects in order to identify what alternative capital sources that we have. I think that's, let me talk at the same time about a little bit about the capital appropriations request, because I think it's related in some ways directly to this. On all of these projects, none of these projects goes forward until funding is secured. And so when you see a date and you see a funding source, that's a date uncertain unless we know for sure that we've got the funding source, and typically if it's state appropriations or federal appropriations, we don't have that funding source secured, but we don't move forward until we have that funding source. We try to...
Nikki?
Yes.
Excuse me, it's Don Walls. I've been on all the time. I think my mic was off for a little bit, but
sure.
I thought that we discussed a year or so ago a program where before we can approve a project, that we were, now we didn't, this is not a board ruling or anything, but a discussion, that before the board would approve, let's say a new business school building at UMKC, that UMKC would have to have, from outside sources, fund 50% of that. Didn't we talk about something like that a year or two ago about how to do this, to finance this?
We did not, I don't recall having that particular discussion. Typically, when we have a new building that we're going to the state for, we require the campus to, and the state has historically asked that the campus provide 20% of the funding from other sources other than the state. They do not require that on renovation or renewal or adaptation projects. And so but that's only for state projects. But we have not had that conversation with regard to other projects.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know what that was.
Sure. So what you should see on the capital plans is that for any project that's a new building that's a state, where there's state funding being requested, you would see at least 20% coming from other sources.
Okay.
Okay, and so one of the changes also that we only made a couple of changes since you saw this in June. One of the changes that was made was a change to the health sciences research building on the Columbia campus, which originally had $75 million of federal funding, and in discussions with Steve Knorr, that has been changed to $25 million and for federal funding and $50 million of other gift funding. So in line with what we think might be a reasonable request.
Okay, Gary, we might want to push the envelope a little bit on that program.
Say it again, Don.
We might want to push the envelope a little bit on that program, like maybe from 20 to 25% or 20 to 30%.
Oh, in terms of, I think to the extent, I think that's part of what'll be part of the conversations that we had if we get into the capital planning is what's the appropriate amount that should be raised from other sources and the appropriate amount that we should be requesting from the state. Let me say this, we haven't received, until the Lewis and Clark Discovery Initiative, we had not received any capital funding from the state since 2001. And some of you were on the board when Jim Moody did a presentation for us a couple of years ago on capital funding from the state. And he described capital funding from the state as being episodic, unreliable, unpredictable, political, and you shouldn't expect it, basically. But we believe that when we look at our capital funding in Missouri for higher education compared to other states, we rank very low in that regard. And I can, in the future, provide the board with some detailed data on that because we have that information. We think it's really important with term limits to continue to remind the state that they have responsibility for capital funding for higher education and for the University of Missouri, and that it's not just operations that keeps higher education going, but it's having the appropriate facilities in order to have the teaching and research missions take place.
So we're going to take that on. So, again, we indicated that we have a small planning team that's going to look at this entire issue by campus and against that array of opportunities we have. So we will be coming back to you, and we will co-op along the way with the state to be sure we have a perspective about what areas they may be able to do versus what the university will have to do. So we will take that on and not be victims of those previous processes.
And another thing, when I look at these lists, and Gary, you talked about some things being critical, and I would assume some of that is about renovation and repair, that be marked on these things too, because it's so overwhelming when you look at it. And I would like to know.
Yeah, if you look at in the back of your binder, there's actually two page 1Bs, but toward the back third of your binder, there is it's called State Capital Appropriation Request, and it's got Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. We actually have labeled that more directly toward this issue of repair renovation and renewal needs, maintenance and repair, if you will, to identify the capital portion that's required. And I think that's a very important reference point. And as Warren already pointed out, there has been a mindset established to try to find some state one-time money. And we've had discussions with Senator Nodler about that even since the session closed, to be sure that he keeps that on the very high priority list for higher education as well as for other state needs. So that's why you see us using terms that both on the capital side as well as on the general operating budget that are reflective of those critical needs, Judy.
I would also point out, Curator Haggard, on the spreadsheets that have all of the projects listed, that next to each project it says types, and if it says NC, that's new construction.
Right.
And where it says RE, it's renovation, repair, replacement, or preservation. So that, that's new construction versus the renovation. And then when it has NC/RE, it's an addition plus renovation.
And so that makes that, I guess in my head, my medical background says when you got a critical lab, you got to move on it.
Yeah.
And so to see something that's really a building about to fall apart and in need, that would mean something special to me and to the legislature.
Okay. If there are no further questions on the capital plans, or are there other questions?
I have a question. I know there's a long list here. We can't go through each one of these individually, but one of them kind of jumped out at me, and that's the number 8 on the campus, which involves the research reactor. That's a federal request. Based on what is provided here, it looks like there might be a significant opportunity there for a revenue generator, and I guess I would like a little bit more information on that as to the potential. Chancellor, can you address that?
I know that
it's radioisotopes, producing medical radioisotopes.
Steve can jump in. Thank you. Curator Frazier and members of the board, what this project is that currently for Molly 99, this product is produced. Molly 99 is a radioisotope that, and I'm going to do it injustice here probably, but it's basically a product that can use for scanning, for CT scans and things like that. It's produced in Canada, in Belgium, and so there's really no domestic supplier of that. What we're trying to do is work with our congressional delegation and the Department of Energy to be able to become that domestic supplier. There's several different reasons. One is it's a good market opportunity for us, but also we're trying to cut down on the non-proliferation agreement. When you're shipping products across, countries of origin right now, it's not a real good thing, and so I think the Department of Energy has an interest in that. The problem is you can't use federal funds to kind of begin to compete with a commercial basis, and so we have to kind of get over that hurdle with the Department of Energy on a federal level. And so we're working real hard with our congressional delegation. This is a huge market, obviously, when you start looking at the potential for the university to really produce in a commercial basis. But we've got some federal hurdles that we have to get over and be able to use federal money to kind of get into that commercial basis. So that's where we are in the process right now.
And I'm with Bo on that. I'm sitting out here where my son-in-law is involved in nuclear with GE, and I know the GE people went there and spoke with our staff on the Columbia campus. I don't know how that went, but certainly they have the technology to help our people to be able to do that, and I'm with you, Bo. That's a good way to make money.
We have one of the only reactors, research reactors in the country, quite frankly.
The largest, actually.
It's the largest research reactor, but you have to have the right kind of reactor, so you can't be too big to produce energy. That doesn't work to produce this product, and you can't be too small, obviously, because that doesn't work from a commercial basis. So we have a really nice niche, the way that the MU research reactor is positioned for us to be able to take advantage of this. So, again, we're working with the congressional delegation to get there, and hopefully we'll make some headway on that.
Steve, do we ever look at how much revenue, what kind of revenue that could produce, and what's the market? I don't know what the market is. What is the domestic market? I'd like to know that.
Yeah, we can get that to you, Don. We don't have that here. We went,
I visited the Department of Energy on this project instead of our reactor. Is it 10 million or is it 100 million?
Closer to 100 million.
Yeah, big stuff.
Oh, that would be a, geez, you know, that would be a great situation, Bo. I agree with you. Wow.
Well, what do we need to do to move this along, Steve? What do you need to help move this in the right direction? It has to be federal, I guess.
Well, no, it doesn't have to be federal.
It has to be federal because federal laws have to be tweaked in order for this reactor to be able to compete cross-border and commercialize. The DOE has to provide the support, and DOE is the critical linchpin right now on this.
Well, hey Gary, what kind of margin would you have on something like that?
Be big, wouldn't it?
Large.
That's what I was thinking.
This is a great project. This is kind of in the 5 to 10 year window time frame. But we need to get DOE, and we need to get it's principally DOE where the focus is. Our congressional delegation has to put the right commitments on this with the Department of Energy, and that work is underway.
Well, I wondered why it was number 8 with that kind of potential, but is that the top of the federal? I guess that's well, there's a number 5 is federal funding too, but those two are maybe not connected in any way.
They're not.
No.
Yeah.
They're totally different.
We just like to have a lot of tools in the toolbox when it comes to federal funding to choose from. So,
and this is not a project that any initial state funding right now from us, campus funding, can move forward. We've got to deal with the federal side of it first.
I got a question, Brady. Who is responsible for staying on top of that project?
Our research director stays on top of it, and our research office does also.
Dr. Nichols?
Yeah.
I'm here. Ralph Butler also is the one leading the charge down at the reactor.
Ralph Butler is the director of the reactor, and he's stayed on top of it all along and kept us briefed on it.
It would be good if you kept the board briefed on that one. It's so important, it looks like.
well, right. Let me just give you a quick update. I mean, right now we have some preliminary language in the Department of Energy appropriations bill encouraging them to do that. Obviously, we'll continue to push that through. Just let me emphasize that the President and Ralph Butler, myself, made a trip out to Energy earlier this spring to work on this project, and we went to the Hill. So we're giving it its fullest attention that we possibly can give to this thing.
We're back on it in September.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all I have.
Curator Walsworth, do you want me to move ahead to the appropriations request?
I think Cheryl just handed it off to you, and that would help me if you just take care of this, please.
Okay. Then the next item in your board materials is the appropriations request, and that's under action item 1. So I don't know if you can find it in your materials. It should be behind all of those spreadsheets on the capital projects, and it's labeled Open TF and MS 1, 1A, and then we have 1B. And 1B is what I'll talk to. 1B and 1C are the appropriations requests summarized for capital. And as I mentioned before, again, one of the things that we're trying to do is to keep the General Assembly abreast of the fact that they have an obligation to fund capital for higher education. And so what we did, we've continued to do this year that we started last year, is that we've broken down our request into Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 projects, so that, again, we have, as Steve Knorr would say, we have the maximum number of tools in our toolbox. You'll notice that in Tier 1 are clearly, I think, our highest priorities, and at the top of that is this critical facilities capital repair, renovation, and renewal needs, and that would address some of that backlog in deferred maintenance that we have from a capital perspective. And so that's about $35 million that we would be requesting from the state. And I think that's the kind of thing that Curator Erdman was talking about earlier, that there may be some one-time money that could be appropriated for that purpose. And then you'll see the buildings that are listed there, and the only change in the buildings that are listed on Tier 1 is that from the last time that you saw this was the College of Optometry now says College of Optometry and College of Nursing Complex. That was a project that the St. Louis campus got some preliminary planning funding for from the state for 2009 in the 2008 General Assembly. I think otherwise it's pretty straightforward. On the second page, you'll see the engineering equipment that we request funding for that from the state based on the number of degrees that we confer. And you'll see the total request for the engineering equipment of $1 million from the state that we have to match with $1 million. And then down below at the bottom of that page, you'll see that there's a $6.5 million of engineering equipment backlog that is the funding that we requested from 2003 through 2009 that we did not request from the state, that we have on here. Hopefully, again, if there were some additional one-time funding or capital funding that would help us in that regard, we want that to be front and center. And we also want the members of the General Assembly to understand that we haven't had that kind of funding, although we are directed to request it each year, and that they are to fund it as funding is available. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Nikki, in the operating budget, we're asking for, I think, $14 million in infrastructure protection maintenance funds.
Yes.
And if that were approved, that would get us back to the funding of maintenance and repair to the 1.5% of replacement value.
Yes.
That to me is a very high priority. I think that's a very important thing for us to try to get to, that getting back to that 1.5% of replacement value.
And that's a recurring number, Warren, which is the other aspect that's important versus one-time funds that could be used either for operating repairs or capital repairs.
Right. Maintenance never stops.
No.
To the extent that we were to receive capital funds for new construction or rehabilitation, does that reduce the ongoing maintenance and repair obligation by producing new facilities that don't require as much maintenance and repair in their early years?
Well, we've got two buckets sized, Warren. One is the kind of cumulative effect, and I think that number has been sized upwards of $800 million of deferred maintenance and repair. So to the extent that there is some overlap, if we were to go in and replace a building, then sure, that would be some triangulation of that data. And that's why we've tried to identify the critical needs here on both lists so that we know on a very targeted basis what we would do with the funds that would be available. But that accumulation of no funding has produced that very large number. The state's number, by the way, has been estimated at close to $1 billion, separate from higher education. And our higher education number is pegged at over $800 million.
And so those projects that say addition and renovation would address some of that $800 million total that the President's talking about, not the addition part, but the renovation part. So on the biological science, chemistry, chemical engineering building in Missouri S&T and the Lafferty Hall reconstruction at MU. And then that would be the same would be true for the renovation part of the medical school renovation at UMKC.
I mean, Warren, another thing to another way to think about it, at some stage, are you better building new than trying to renovate and repair? And that's the trade-off that campuses obviously have to work their way through as they think about their priorities and think about their ability to either raise money privately to support that or to ask and expectations of state money.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah.
But you know what? Even if you build new buildings, you've got other buildings that are growing older, so that ongoing maintenance is always going to be there. And I think getting to that 1.5% of replacement value is a extremely important goal.
We agree with that. That gets you, at least gets you on a going forward basis where you've got enough flexibility to deal with some of the hot buttons.
Thank you.
So if there are no other questions, I think, Curator Walsworth, you need to ask for a motion on the committee, by the committee, to approve the appropriation request for capital.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the capital appropriation request.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Does this have to be from the committee?
Senators Walsworth or Wassinger need a second.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? If not, would you please call the roll, Steve?
Sure. Committee vote only. Curator Haggard?
Yes.
Curator Walsworth?
Yes.
Curator Wassinger? Motion passes 3-0. All right, let's just go to the next one.
Okay.
Still in the committee.
Okay, so we're still in committee, and we have the second action item, which is the new soccer intramural stadium at University of Missouri, Kansas City. We're coming to the board to ask for design-build project approval. This is a $9 million project. $1 million of it up front would be funded by a gift, and the campus would like for us to issue a debt of $8 million to fund the rest of it. Of that $8 million, half of that would be paid off over 8 years through a gift of $4 million, $500,000 a year each year, and then the remaining $4 million would be paid off through various fees that are already associated with the Sweeney Recreation Center. The campus views this as an extension of the Sweeney Recreation Center and paid off the debt for that center last year, so the student recreation fees could be now diverted to this project without levying any new fees. In addition, there is, as the business plan showed in the materials that we provided for you, there are membership fees to people who join the recreation center from other institutions and from the community. There is some endowment income that's associated with the recreation center, and so that would be the source of the funding for this project. This would include a soccer pitch that would allow them to improve their ability to compete in the NCAA soccer program, and also includes stands, and then a building that would include, and a concession area, and then a building that would include offices and locker rooms. And then there's also a stadium that goes along with the soccer pitch. The Kansas City campus would like to employ the firm of Brailsford and Dunleavy for the programming and design build bridging for this project at a lump sum fee of $90,000. Brailsford and Dunleavy has strong credentials in this area. 360 Architecture, which is a Kansas City firm, was ranked second. They did not want to, they preferred not to, I guess the committee also preferred not to award this part of developing the bridging document so that they could propose as part of the team for the actual design build of this. So if there are any questions, I know that Rick Anderson and I think Chancellor Bailey are on the telephone, and they could also answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, this is Gary. We brought this forward at this meeting because of the donors' desire to have this online for late '09. So there was some impetus to get this one started.
Well, it's all going to be funded by gifts anyway, isn't it, Nikki?
No, $4 million will be funded, actually, over time by various student recreation fees and endowment funding.
But those fees are already in existence.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so basically you're getting $1 million down payment from a private source, and then a commitment on debt service for the remaining half, and then the other half is paid by an existing student fee.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Pretty good deal.
Is there any further discussion regarding this? Could I have a motion by the committee?
I think that we go forward on this design build project.
Is there a second? I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded. Steve, would you like to call the roll of the committee?
And it's the committee vote only. Curator Haggard?
Yes.
Curator Walsworth?
Yes.
Curator Wassinger?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
I might also add that the gifts are from the Stanley Durwood Foundation. So the $1 million up front, and then the $4 million that come over the next 8 years.
Okay.
That's the yes.
Now, we need to have the whole board vote on this now, right?
Yeah, need to have the board consider the two action items now passed by the committee. So, Chairman Walker?
If it's okay with everyone, I would entertain a motion that we handle both of these in the same resolution action item.
I move adoption of both committee recommendations.
I'll second that. Is there any further discussion?
I don't know who seconded it.
Marion.
Judy or Marion? We'll give it.
Marion.
Right.
Okay, I call for the vote.
We're now voting on both action items 1 and 2. Curator Cairns?
Yes.
Curator Carnahan?
Yes.
Curator Erdman?
Yes.
Curator Frazier?
Yes.
Curator Haggard?
Yes.
Curator Russell?
Yes.
Curator Walker?
Yes.
Curator Walsworth?
Yes.
Curator Wassinger?
Yes.
The motion passes 9-0.
Okay. Does anyone have anything for the good and welfare of the board? If not, then I entertain a motion to close the open meeting and move into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Curator Cairns?
Yes.
Curator Carnahan? Curator Carnahan? Curator Erdman?
Yes.
Curator Frazier?
Yes.
Curator Haggard?
Yes.
Curator Russell?
Yes.
Curator Walker?
Yes.
Curator Walsworth?
Yes.
Curator Wassinger? Motion passes 7-0. You have a dial-in number?
Okay, with that, I'll see everyone on the other side, so to speak.